we have come to one of the most exciting parts of gardening, I think.
Big reveal.
Well, it's not really a big reveal yet. Well, I guess it is, but it's kind of like one of those things. It is time to harvest some potatoes. It's time. We got to harvest these suckers, and I'm excited. I have no idea how much we're going to do. We're going to try and kind of keep you informed as to how much we planted as we go. So I think our plan is to start with our Yukon Gold. We had 3 rows, 5 pounds in each row. These were seed potatoes that we actually purchased. These were not from our own saved.
First time growing them in a while, so we like the variety. We just haven't grown it in the last few years.
So we're hoping we're going to get some here that will be good for saving for seeds, potatoes. Or we're hoping we're going to get enough to be able to do that, but just kind of giving you the heads up, we started with 15 pounds that we put in the ground, and we're going to see what we're going to get. I think we're going to, I'm just giving you the kind of play-by-play of how this video is going to flow. I think we're going to just kind of take you through step by step as we harvest, and then at the end we're going to do a big weigh on what we brought in for potatoes this year.
So here's the patch of Yukon Gold potatoes, and as you can see, they've died right back. And we do have a couple that are sort of right at the surface. We've got to get in there, get these out of the ground, and see what we're working with.
And the other thing we should mention on the Yukon Gold is I did already do a sneak peek harvest. We'll link the video below here of those couple potato plants that I'd already dug up in order to be able to cook this summer.
We've only just pulled up 2 plants, and you can see what we've already got. This is without digging. I'm going to pull this one up in the middle here and see what comes up with it. Watch nothing come up. Okay. Couple. That's the seed potato. But these Yukon Golds grew quite nice. We're going to dig a little bit further in a minute, but that's kind of without any major work. The soil's looking pretty nice in there.
Yeah, the big problem with this soil was they weren't able to go down very far because it's so hard packed. But look at the size of that one.
They're definitely, I always liked this variety because when I was younger, my parents used to grow it, and yeah.
Oh, it has fond memories for Christopher.
Well, it's just a nice variety.
Is it best for mashed potatoes? Is that your favorite way to have Yukon Golds?
I like them for that. They're yellow flesh, so they're pretty good.
So here we have row 1 complete. Our little trough of potatoes going down there. Are you pleasantly surprised, disappointed?
No, I think they've done quite well. One thing we noticed, none of them were very deep.
No, nothing was deep. Like you could just kind of skim off the top with your hands and they were there.
Pretty much right there, but this was an area that was a bit harder packed. That being said, having the potatoes in here, it's definitely broken it up a bit.
Yeah, the ground is looking a little bit better, but definitely needs some more TLC still. But let's keep going. So we're working our way here through row 2. Very, very pleased with these. And Chris is just doing, I've kind of come along and I take them off the top, as you can see past Chris there. And he's just digging it up to make sure that nothing did go lower.
Now I don't know if this is a proper potato fork, but I kind of like this one because you'll see it's broader. Like a lot of pitchforks are pointy little tubes, right? This is broader, so you put it down and you still run the risk of hitting a
puncturing,
potato,
but so far we've been pretty good.
They've stayed to the row really well. So what we're basically doing is just coming along beside where the row was. We kind of did it with the mound, came back to the spring, we did it with a mound and then like a pathway down the middle. And so we're just going from the edge of the pathway, and we're finding they didn't really creep out into the pathways. No. They're pretty much in the, it's like one long hill.
Yeah.
And it seems to have worked really well for these anyway.
The one thing that we are finding is the plants themselves not super prolific in the number of potatoes they've produced, but look at the size of these. Like that is, they're consistently producing a like fistful of potato. Look at that. It's a consistent size. So far we've only had one with any damage.
This is a good example too of sort of the hard pan that we're hitting. And when we did this bed out, we basically couldn't even get into this. And I'm able to get through it with the fork and loosen it up a bit, which in the long term should make for a much better garden. But it's going to be a few years before we get this all worked up. But that's okay, we have time.
There's blue! So here we have row 2 all dug up. All the way down there. Like I say, not a lot of potatoes per plant, but nice size. So row 1 was more than half. So we're going to be overflowing that milk crate without even getting to the 3rd row. I think we're going to need more boxes. And there is row 3.
Minus a little bit.
Yeah, remember the little bit that I did take out at the beginning there, right here. There was 2 plants that I dug up earlier this year already. But as you can see from our bucket, the 2 rows filled that milk crate full. So I guess we're going to put them in the next one.
So moving on, we have our Austrian Crescents, which are kind of this end of the bed. I'm pretty sure there's 3 rows of them. Might be more than that.
3 rows. It's 3.
It's okay. We think it's 3 rows. We're going to do them last in this garden because we're going to do the russets first, which are over here. And it basically just looks like one giant bed of potatoes, which it is. So we're going to get digging and see what we come up with.
Russet potatoes, row number 1. Not too bad. A lot of potatoes from that row. This batch, I would say, Chris, we're having the opposite. We're getting tons and tons of potatoes.
They're a little smaller.
But they're smaller. They'll still be tasty, and we'll have lots of great ones for seed potatoes, but definitely these russets were our last ones in for potatoes, and you can tell. But let's move on to row 2, because maybe we're wondering if the shade effect from the sorghum or anything like that could have had potential effect on this. Look at that one. Finally. Finally, a nice big russet. Another nice big russet. And we're only on row 2. This is very exciting. Very exciting. These are going to be awesome for some poutine. And there's row 2 of the russets. It's going to be rinse and repeat. We're going to do the same process for the next 4 rows. We're not going to bore you with the details, but we'll come back at the end and show you how much we got. So far, we've done the Yukon Golds and the 2 rows of russets. And these 2 potatoes are the only potatoes that we found damaged. We're pretty sure it's insects. I bet it's earwigs, because we had a huge problem with earwigs this year. Just thought we'd show you there a little bit of the destruction that some of the bugs can do, because I'm pretty sure that's not critters.
No, that looks like insects.
Insects of some sort. But we're going to throw those to the bees. So we did have, this is, we're on to row 4 now of our russet potatoes. And we did have a little bit of rodent damage on these ones. We're pretty sure this is definitely a rodent. That's some good teeth marks there. So we ended up with 3 potatoes lost in this row. Not that that's a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but just showing you that there's been a little bit of damage between the bugs and the rodents. So these are the russet potatoes from the first 4 rows of what we had so far of the 6. It's basically looking like we're kind of getting a milk crate for every 2 rows, or 2 rows fills a milk crate roughly. Pretty close. This was our Yukon Gold harvest. Quite nice. I mean, that's a 2 foot by 4 foot board. As I said, the Yukon Golds were really nice because they had really big potatoes, not as many, where the russets, as you can see here, we're getting a lot of little guys, but a lot of them. Chris is just finishing digging up the last row of russets. Like we thought, we're going to have 3 of these milk crates full. of the russet potatoes, which is pretty awesome. I think we're quite happy with the russets and what we've gotten out of this. Way, way, way more than we put in. And the nice thing was we used all our own seed potatoes for this. So no money was spent. Everything that we've come out is going right back into the kitty, and we will allocate some more for next year and see what we end up with. But as you can kind of see and kind of hear, it's getting a little bit later here. We're starting to get dark and it's feeding time on the crazy farm. So I'm just going to give you a sneak peek at something that Chris went ahead and started without me, and the camera for that matter. He started without you. He started on the fingerlings, pulling out the greens. All that was on top. It was absolutely wonderful. So I have a feeling we're going to have quite the fingerling harvest. What do you think, Chris?
I think so.
And again, these fingerlings were all from potatoes we had saved ourselves last year from our harvest. So
Austrian Crescents.
Yeah, Austrian Crescent fingerlings. So we will see how we do with this before it gets too dark.
So these Austrian Crescents last year were kind of an experiment, and they actually turned out really good. We got quite a harvest of them basically out of growing them in our black tubs. So this is the first year growing them in the ground. We're going to dig up the one row. So I'm going to go along this row and pull out the greens. And like I say, you pull out the greens and there's quite a few under there.
Yeah. Chris is madly trying to finish this first row, but we are tapping out for today. But look at all these fingerlings just out of this one row.
They're small, but they're productive.
They are so prolific.
And they're very tasty.
You can kind of see, like, we sort of piled them with each plant. And some of the plants, like look at that one there, the production that came from that plant is crazy. We were hoping to get all these out before the rain started, but it's not going to happen. So at least we've gotten a majority of it done. We're going to get the russets all weighed up because they're all out. We've weighed up the Yukon Golds, and like I say, we're going to continue with this harvest because we want to bring you a video that tells you it all. So we are a few days later. We had some rain. Now we've had some sun. Things are drying out. And we're going to get these potatoes finished. I believe so far we've tallied around the 175 pounds. We're going to take out our all blues, all red, and our blue skin today. And that will pretty much be the end of potato harvest for this year. So fingers crossed. We're starting in here. Chris is pulling out some weeds. That's the one thing we seem to grow best around here is the weeds. But one thing that we pointed out previously in videos is a lot of these are out of the ground because they're the blue skin and the red skin. I'll just take you over here and show you the red ones. We're hoping that this, you know, they've got no green on them, so I'm guessing that we're fine as far as consumption. If we're not here tomorrow or the next day, you'll know why. But we're going to get started because some of these look like big beauties.
The bed is exposed and all the big weeds are out, and you can see lots of potatoes sticking out. We can see our rows. So we've got this part of the garden done. We also decided to rip out what was left of the Scotia tomatoes because they were pretty much done, and just give ourselves some more space. And there's another bit of tomato or potatoes right in here. These are the blue skinned white fleshed ones. All down here where the Canada crookneck squash are, there is another, I think it's a double row of potatoes that kind of was underneath them, but we're going to come back to that once we get sort of the upper half of the garden harvested. There's row one. You can see, not too bad. They came out a nice size. But
much better than when we grew them in buckets.
Yes, they did way better in the ground. They didn't go very deep at all. Now remember, we had this very heavily mulched, and as you can see, the mulch is all disintegrated. They didn't go very deep. They're pretty good size, and maybe not the most prolific, but that's a lot better than what we did in the buckets last year. And we've got some of these here where essentially the mulch is kind of completely disintegrated around them. They're even starting to grow, so we may actually take some of these little guys, put them in the greenhouse, and see if we can't get another round of potatoes this fall. And here's row number 2 of the all reds. Interesting because we've noticed at the bottom of the slope, which is closer to the squash, and they may have been a bit more shaded, we're definitely getting less production than we are at the top of the slope. Some of those are pretty good size, so
they look good this year.
They may not be the absolute most productive potato. They're unique, so they're still worth give it a shot.
We really can't get over how amazing these all blue potatoes have been. This is basically one row and we've started on the second, and we said we've got to record this because every time Chris digs, we're like going, wow, look at that one. Wow, look at that one. So, watch, now there won't be any to say wow about. But let's dig. That was an okay one. One thing we're noticing with these, Chris, is the creep of them, aren't we?
Yeah, they're spreading further than the other potatoes have.
Yeah, the all reds it was basically under the plant and that was it. But these all blues are just spread. It's like they crept out underneath, a good 1.5 feet wide. We're having to dig this whole channel. Oh, there's a good one. And there was another nice one. Look at that guy. These are amazing. This is probably, we were saying, oh, look at that one. We were saying that these are probably...
Interesting to see if they're the heaviest producer.
Yeah, for volume of what we put in. We planted about 10 pounds of seed potatoes, or our saved potatoes from last year. And I definitely think volume of what we produced from those 10, the all blues are going to be our top producer potato. The Yukon Golds probably would have been a close second. Yes, we'll have to look at, whoa, and look at the worms in here. This is some healthy ground.
A lot healthier than it was when we put them in here.
Yes, yes.
The mulch definitely helps.
Certainly does. But we're going to continue harvesting this and bring you back when we've got them all done so we can do some final comparisons and weigh-ins. Sneak peek, but oh my gosh, look at it. The bucket is already like 3/4 full, and we still have all, I mean, it's going to more than overfill this bucket, these all blues. I'm so excited about these ones. Oh my goodness.
They may become a main crop tomato or potato.
I think they will become a main crop potato, not tomato. Chris is having trouble today differentiating his vegetables and fruits. Excited to see how much weight we get out of these potatoes for the 10 pounds put in.
2 more of our varieties are harvested. So we have the all reds and the all blues, which, exactly like their namesake, these are red inside, these are blue inside. This is an interesting experiment because it shows you too that not all varieties are created equal. We had 3 rows of the all reds and only 2 rows of the all blue. And going into last spring, or coming out of last winter I guess, we had way more of the all reds, hence why we had 3 rows, than we did of the all blues. And as you can see, when planted in the ground, I would say both of these varieties have significantly improved on their production. But it's pretty clear from a amount of food produced, I guess would be the best way to put it, that the all blues are probably the winner. That being said, that doesn't mean we're going to stop growing the all reds, because we're very happy with the production that they've given us, and they give you a unique product. Now before we weigh these, there's one other thing that we wanted to mention here. Both of these varieties are reasonably new for us to grow. We started growing them in 2020. We grew them both in buckets, had okay production. We were really eager to see how they did this year in the ground, and we actually were hoping to purchase a few more seed potatoes of both of these varieties. We weren't able to do that because they weren't available. So this is an excellent example for 2 things that are unique. They have unique qualities. You can't really go to the grocery store and buy these varieties, or at least not in our area. So to keep something unique like this, you've got to be thinking ahead to the next year, at least to the next year. So we will, for these, as all of our potato varieties, we will put a portion of the harvest aside, sort of specifically for a seed potato, but we'll come back to that after. But that's definitely food for thought when you're growing, really when you're growing anything, is you should be thinking further ahead than just the immediate harvest.
So we're back at it in the potato patch for our blue-skinned potatoes. Last potatoes to harvest. Super excited for this to be done. But we have planted about 15 pounds of these, give or take a little bit. We've already harvested some of them from our container black bucket harvest.
First batch that we harvested was from the buckets. So that's more comparable to what we did last year. But these are all in the ground, so we are curious to see
how they compare.
Yes.
There's some pretty intense potato harvesting going on here for our last row of potatoes for the 2021 season. I think we're approaching the done point of potatoes.
Almost there.
Almost. But while these guys are working on this, let's go see what Jamesy's doing. All right, James, what are you working on?
I'm just working on biscuits.
Oh, biscuits. Did your scale shut off?
Yeah.
That's all right. We can start over. So tell us what you're working on while we're getting this going.
We're working on potatoes for seeds.
Yeah?
We're trying to get 10 pounds.
Yes.
So far I have 6, yet I have to redo them all because of the scale turning off.
Okay, and now tell everybody, what is a perfect seed potato to you?
This would be a good seed potato.
That's a beautiful seed potato. So is your scale on?
Yes, it is.
All right, so
And
he's
I'm putting all
working
these
away.
back in,
But James is in charge
potatoes.
of sorting out our seed potatoes. As we get ready to store things, we've made the decision to save 10 pounds of the all reds and at least 15 pounds of the all blues. So James is in charge of selecting our seed potatoes, weighing them and boxing them for storage for the whole winter. Pretty exciting to have more for now.
Time.
It is, but you know, this year we couldn't get these potatoes, so we were really glad that we saved seeds for them. Or saved potatoes.
We finished sorting. The harvest is basically done for the potatoes here, and we've got everything in the house. Where we left off outside sorting, we've kind of continued to do that because we didn't get everything for seed sorted. So we have put aside, what did we say? We've put aside
81 pounds of potatoes.
For seed potatoes.
For seed potatoes for next year. That's in 6 varieties, 6 different types of potatoes, varying amounts depending on how much we wanted of them, I guess.
And of course, the rest is for eating. So we'll show you what it looks like here on the floor before we take it downstairs for storage. So here it is, which I suppose in some ways, when you get it all out on the floor, it doesn't look like as much as it sounds, but
it looks like a lot.
It looks like quite a bit. So we have this is sort of the sum of everything except for the early variety we harvested.
Yeah, this is a combination of all the potatoes we've harvested all year, including our container harvest, which we'll link the video above, and also that little kind of early harvest I started doing when we ran out of potatoes. So everything is here. This is what is left.
So the grand total for what came into the house for potatoes is
341 pounds. We kind of estimate that we planted about 75 pounds of seed potatoes this year, and 341 is what we've gotten so far, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's not bad. That's a lot of food. So you can see here, these ones that are in the cardboard boxes are the seed potatoes. So we're going to take them downstairs and kind of put them somewhere, nothing too spectacular, but so you can kind of see we tried to pick ones that were sort of characteristic of the potato variety that we were growing. These are russets here. Ones that were relatively free of scab. I mean, that's generally a good idea to kind of always do that because you don't want to be recontaminating if you can help it. And we also didn't necessarily go for the largest. We kind of picked ones that were of a moderate size because the plan is to put these aside and hopefully get them through the winter so that we'll have them for next year. And by keeping the moderate sized ones, like this year we planted a lot of small ones in some varieties. Like these fingerlings, we actually planted quite a few of them, and a lot of the ones we planted as seed potato were smaller than this one that's in my hand here. But something we noticed, and we've kind of already mixed them together, but a lot of them were quite small. So this was sort of kind of like this size, which is still, it's food, it's edible, but the experiment...
But undesirable somewhat in our perspective.
Just a little harder to use for anything but new potatoes. Whereas this is still small by potato standards, but kind of a little nicer size. So the hope is to do a little bit of selection with the cloning here, and see if it makes a big difference next year by kind of using the best of the best. As opposed to last year where we just kind of planted everything we had because that's all we had. Still, that is not a bad harvest.
So one thing this year, and you'll notice this, one of our best harvests was our Yukon Gold potatoes. And as you can see, we subtracted our 15 pounds of seed potatoes, but we're almost finished them. So one thing we have learned from this harvest is that Yukon Golds are definitely our favorite potato and our go-to because they are disappearing fast. So
part of that's because they're large and they make really good mashed potatoes.
yes. So when we say that we've harvested 341 pounds in total, probably close to 50 pounds is gone already. Because,
potentially.
like, it is one of those things. This year we actually have potatoes to eat, and it's surprising when you have them how much you enjoy eating them.
One thing that's kind of maybe a teaser to next year's discussion is we've got 7 varieties of potatoes that we grow, which is great because potatoes don't cross. So, I mean, you're cloning them, right? So you can have the variety. And each one is a little bit different. We have the Yukon Golds, which are a yellow flesh, sort of nice big round type potato. We have the Russets, which are a white flesh.
Stay nice and firm, good for fries.
Yes, whereas the Yukon Golds are a little better for the mashed potatoes and that kind of things. We've got the blue skin variety, which of course has a blue skin. They're good for mashed or baked potatoes.
And then you've really got the kind of gourmet potatoes, which are a lot of kind of people leave the skin on. They're the pretty potatoes.
Mm-hmm. Or the ones like the all blue and the all reds, which are red and blue all the way through. Mm-hmm. So each one of these is a little...
you made a rhyme!
So each potato is a little bit different, but as we were talking with the
Yukon Gold.
with the Yukon Golds, we've got to figure out now that we have these how we like to cook them, because ultimately there's really no point in growing them if you're not going to use them. So this will be the year to sort of test it out. I mean, we know with the Yukon Golds, we know with the Russets how we want to use them. We have lots of ideas on how to use the other ones. We know the all blues are one we like because they do taste good. They're not as big, but they taste good. So that'll be kind of the next piece is, do we continue to grow this many after we've had a winter of using them and finding ways to use them?
Or if we ended up with favorites and others have gone on the wayside.
Do we kind of bring it back and focus on a smaller number of potato varieties? So stay tuned for that. And on that note, that's the end of our...
we're going to go cook
potato
some potatoes.
Harvest. Yes.